Interesting description on that bottle.
It's an interesting description, but I'll tell you what, I've had worse session best bitters.
Yeah, it's pretty decent actually. It's not too bad.
Anyway, well, you're dying to hear about my trip to Dublin, but
absolutely. Let's have it. Let's have it all.
Right, disappointment. Breaking news. Guinness doesn't taste any different. No, it doesn't taste any different in Dublin. It's a load of bollocks. I believed that myth for like the last 25 years, and I tried it in 4 or 5 different places, and no.
It tasted the same every time?
Yes. So it didn't taste bad. It was well made, well kept, well delivered.
Yeah.
I drank it, but I didn't think, ooh, this is worth an extra half a mark on Untapped.
Yeah.
So, no.
So you've had a bit of a beer epiphany then?
I have had a beer epiphany, and I'm a bit disappointed about it, to be honest.
Oh no, I can actually sense the disappointment in your tone.
Got my Irish heritage. Guinness is what we drink on St Patrick's Day, and it's a bit of a default beer at times.
Yeah.
Because you know that, because you know what you're going to get with Guinness, don't you?
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm thinking, okay, in Dublin, let's have the Guinness. I tried it in the first pub I tried it in was a recommendation from Wayne of Irish Beer Snob fame. And very nice pub, very well delivered pint, but didn't taste any difference when I had it in Holloway on St Patrick's Day in London.
So what was Guinness not tasting the same aside? What was the highlight of your weekend in Dublin?
Beer wise was definitely the Galway Bay double IPA going out west. Very, very dangerously drinkable West Coast. It says dipper. I can necessarily leap out and say it was more of a dipper than an IPA at 7.8%, but also at 7.8% I could have done a few larger measures than the samples I was doing.
Yeah,
definitely that was a fantastic beer. But I recommend Brewdog, which was just 30 seconds from the hotel, which was blinding. I reckon I did about, in the end I sampled all their beers on keg because you could do them as a sampling paddles, and they were all nice. There was they did a collab with Cigar City, a sour.
Oh yeah.
That was nice.
Any good?
Yeah. We even got 1 or 2 of the guys to try it as well, and didn't kill them.
And your mates aren't?
My mates aren't crafty.
They're not craft drinkers.
No, they're not crafty people. They're not crafty people, but they like the bar.
Okay, it's a lovely place, Brewdog. I've been there a few times.
It's a lovely bar.
Yeah.
So it did spark their interest a little bit, but yeah, the actual bar itself was really good. We went to the beer market, another one of theirs, but that was more en route to somewhere else or coming back from Open Gate. Went to the Open Gate Brewery over at Guinness, and you pay €6 and you get a 4 paddle sample from and you can choose your 4 from the board.
Okay.
I tried a few. The highlight from that was definitely for me was the Imperial Dunkelweiss, which is about 8% odd. Nice dark wheat beer, dry finish, really lovely flavour. Was looking forward to the Antwerpen Stout, but didn't really work for me. I just found it a bit too sweet.
Okay, what makes it an Antwerpen?
No idea.
Stout?
No idea. So if anyone wants to tell me, I should have asked Wayne really, because I know that he tried it when he went over there a couple of weeks ago, so I should have asked him in advance. But it didn't quite work for me. But the actual space itself at the Open Gate Brewery was excellent. It's like their experimental arm and the bit where they do their small batches, and I think probably where they hold events as well over there. They've got some of the fermenting vessels, small versions compared to the ones which have got Guinness outside, and some wooden barrels and some nice like scaffolding and tables. It's all very nicely laid out. A little bit edge of town, so if anyone who's listening is planning on visiting there, plan your route back.
Okay.
It's a top tip from us, who went to Dublin and didn't plan our route back.
Well, I mean, in comparison, my week has been another week full of shit beers trying to get badges on Untapped.
For Badge Quest.
in the final week of Badge Quest for the big beery night. Other than that, the only other thing I did, which you can listen to the result of on the end of tonight's show, I went and interviewed the guys behind Hofmeister.
Okay, cool.
So they invited me over to a bar. We sat down, we had a few glasses of Hofmeister, and we had a chat about their reasoning behind bringing that brand back. So that's on the end of this week's show as an interview if people want to hang around. And
nice way to close off the Follow the Bear we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was only fair, seeing as we built a whole show around their brand and then didn't actually really mention it or their beer.
Yeah.
And we ended up talking about branding
in general.
In general, and so I thought it was only fair to go over and have a chat to them. And it's there's some interesting stuff in there, so make sure you give that a listen. And that's really it for my week, mate. I've had a quiet one.
Yeah, well, you've drunk a lot.
I've drunk a lot. I've drunk a ridiculous
to get badges
amount. And after this evening's recordings, I'm off of it for a week. I need to give my liver a rest, which is probably a good segue to talk about what we've got in our glass for our first beer this evening. So this was one that you've brought to the table.
Yeah, when I was up in Milton Keynes visiting my folks a few months ago, I made a point of going to the MK Biergarten, which is a new craft beer shop and bar, which is opened a few miles outside of Milton Keynes Centre, and just perusing the shelves as you do, and saw a range of beers from a Northampton brewer called Nobby's, and picked up a few of their ones. Tried the Pilsner earlier before we came on air, Steve, which I thought it was quite a nice, refreshing.
Yeah, it's easy enough to drink.
Started off the evening quite nicely, and we're drinking the best bitter now, and I'm thinking it's quite nice actually. It's not got that real twiggy, grassy, earthy feel to it, although it's got a very lovely copper colour.
It has, but it doesn't have that copper characteristic that you tend to get from best bitters sometimes that can taste a little bit coppery. I mean, it's 3.6%, 3.8%, 500ml bottle. Lovely looking bottle actually. A fine session ale with an excellent hop finish, and I'd have to go as far as agreeing with that. I think the finish on it it's kind of sweet, a little bit floral. It's definitely lacking any twigs or wood.
Yeah, you get a bit of the, maybe, I don't know, the caramel coming through, perhaps.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that, but not overpowering, not cloying, and it is a dry finish, actually.
Yeah, very, very much so.
So, yeah, I'm quite pleased with the results of two out of three I've picked up so far.
Yeah, we've got one more to do tonight, which we'll get onto in due course. I thought we could jump into the news now and get that out of the way, and then we can get onto the main focus of this week's show. So, not being one that's shy around self-promotion, the first story for this week's news is the Big Brewery night that we hosted last week. As things stand, as we recalled, we've currently raised £4,281.40 for Macmillan Cancer, which has been a great effort by everybody involved. Over £2,100 of that came from the auction that we ran on the evening. We saw some of the lots go for incredible money in there. The particular highlights being the £300 bid on the Cloudwater lot, and the £330 bid on the bottles of dusty old beer from certain people's cellars. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that's got involved in that and has donated money.
No, it's brilliant.
Well,
I couldn't follow it all while I was out in Dublin, but the odd one or two messages which I did pick up and did read seemed to be going really well, if not a bit hectic.
It was a bit hectic. Many thanks to Clayton, who was here helping me run the evening and doing his best to fuck up my Twitter feed for the evening. But I probably couldn't have done the evening without Clayton's help, and he was kind of behind the scenes contacting people once they had won the lot and making sure they were donating. So cheers for that, mate. I do appreciate it. Next up on this week's news, and I don't know if we can just continue to call this news anymore. There's a new Cloudwater dipper.
No, really?
No? Okay. So that's not news anymore.
No.
Okay. Sorry, Cloudwater. We love your beers, but
yeah, we do love your beers, but I don't think
it's not
otherwise we'll have to do
newsworthy.
it every month.
One a month, not newsworthy anymore. So the Celt Experience beers are back and will be available for Christmas. So some people might know that the Celt Experience from Wales.
Yeah, I thought they closed.
They did. They closed down in May. They ceased production in May. Interestingly, and this ties in a little bit to tonight and some other shows as well. The business was acquired by James Buckley, 7th generation of Buckley brewing family, and production manager of the Evans Group. So basically it's somebody that's bought a brand to add to their portfolio. Mr. Buckley described the chance to buy the brand as a golden opportunity. So their beers will be back in time for Christmas for people that have enjoyed drinking Celt beers.
It'll be interesting to hear what people think. I haven't drunk enough of them to know if they'll taste different, but some fans of Celt beers, when they haven't, been interesting to hear what they think.
I've had a few, but like I say, they're not necessarily, haven't always been one that I've gone back to time and time again. So just to echo what you're saying, if people have got any views on that, let us know. Just some more product news here. So Beer School, a crash course in craft beer, which is a new book by the guys from the Craft Beer channel.
Should have bought that before the show.
We should have done, yeah. is available from the 22nd of November. So you can get that on Amazon and other good bookshops. Probably well worth a read. I know the guys have already started writing book 2 as well. So obviously in anticipation of book 1 being such a success. Or,
congratulations to them.
Or maybe it's already had that many pre-sales that they can afford to write book 2. But no, well done on that, guys, and we'll certainly look forward to giving that a read. And then just finally on this week's news, Fuller's have announced their Pub of the Year, which is the Griffin Trophy goes to the Hydrant, which is at Monument, a place that I know we've had a beer in before.
We visited there. Yeah,
it's kind of a new style Fuller's bar.
Yeah, definitely. They called it bar and I think it was Fuller's Bar and Kitchen or something. I think it was what it was called.
Yeah,
it was under that. But I'm surprised. I think it's a good thing. It's very much in keeping with what was there before, with like the Fine Line, which was there before. It's definitely a bar to suit the city.
Yeah.
But they did have some good beers on keg. Not that many of Fuller's on cask, if I remember correctly, though.
No, a few.
Yeah.
Probably your standard sort of London Pride
and maybe Oliver's Island. They keep trying to push down my throat.
Yeah. But it would be. I think that was probably the one observation I had the one time I went in there was that they could have had a few more of the Fuller's range on. Cask.
I don't think I think we may have had one Fuller's and the rest we didn't.
Yeah. But you know.
But it's a very good looking bar. It's very nice. It's well worth a visit.
Okay, so I suppose that brings us on to
Hopinions, 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 Hopinions.
Does craft beer really need a definition? Which is one that I think we've been maybe. I don't know if we've been skirting around.
No, I've been avoiding. If I'm being honest, I've been avoiding it.
Purposely not getting into. You see that we actually avoided asking the question. Should we define what is the definition of craft beer?
I'm glad about that.
And actually went for does craft beer need a definition? So let's see what Twitter thought this week. 282 people voted on the poll, so one of the highest numbers so far on a
pretty impressive numbers.
Poll. Yeah. We have 3 options. We had yes, no, and oh for fuck's sake. I'd say it was an overwhelming victory in the camp of no and for fuck's sake. So 45% of people voted for fuck's sake, 33% of people voted for no, and only 22% of people voted for yes. And I have to say that those that voted for yes weren't very forthcoming in then having opinions as to why they voted for yes. It was mostly the people that voted against.
Yeah, we can come to that, I reckon. But I'm not surprised we ended up with people saying we don't need to, or why the hell are you even asking this question?
Why is that? Do you think, from your view, why?
I think it's because of I hate to use the word bubble, but the people who listen to the show, the people who follow the show on Twitter, the people that we know, probably feel fairly confident in either that they feel that the word craft, they know roughly what it means, or they simply don't care, which I think will be borne out by some of the comments we've seen. So I think there's a lot of people who, the ones who did yes, probably generally would like it to be done, but don't feel they can be eloquent about that in 140 characters on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because I know a couple of people who definitely said yes, because it would help them, but they can't then say that.
It's an interesting point you make there about 140 characters on Twitter, because there was one response that came from Mark at Million Bevs that clearly 140 characters weren't enough.
No, that was definitely more than 140.
He typed a whole note and then screenshotted it and posted it, which we'll come to. And there were also a couple of people that actually took it upon themselves, people that I know that are friends of mine, that took it upon themselves to text me a number of messages venting their frustration at this particular question, which again we'll come to. I think the one thing for me, what this poll kind of did, and
firstly, Steve, what made you ask it?
When
we've avoided it for the 10 previous shows or however many we've done together, why did you bother to ask that question?
There was some chat about it last week. There was some, because every now and again it comes up, doesn't it? On Twitter, and I think I watched the most recent round of discussions, and I started thinking, do we need to keep having this discussion every couple of weeks or months? Do we need to keep going there? Does it really need a definition anymore? And then I think that the more I thought about it and watching some of the responses come in as well, I think in terms of what we've been doing over the first, I suppose, run of opinions, is it kind of begins to tie up some of the other shows that we've done. So if you used to take this as a story arc in your favourite American TV show.
Oh, it's not just American TV shows that have it. Doctor Who always has a story arc.
Well, in that terms, it kind of, for me, this is going to bring together this current story arc that we've been working on. So if you go back to recent shows, we had the show about beers in supermarkets, which kind of covered this subject a little bit. We had the show about branding, where we got into the people trying to deceive people with branding. We had the Two Goose Island shows, which was all about craft beer and its definition. And then we had the show from last week in terms of our journey through beer. And for me, they were kind of all steps on the way to, looking back now, they're all steps leading up to us having to ask this question of, do we need a definition of craft beer?
Yeah, I mean, I saw something on Facebook saying similar about, but it was I think it was a very camera-focused way of looking at craft beer, and some of the options that they were putting out there were really trying to lead the conversation as well.
Yeah.
And if you pick up Your Shout, which is the letters page in the camera paper, you'll always see craft being mentioned, and rarely will craft be mentioned in a good light. It will nearly always be in a negative. And for me, that's probably one of the things. Again, this is all a bit jumbled up with what we're saying, but the term craft beer, a lot of craft beer purists may not be aiming for a camera market, but the fact that craft beer, it has got a title, if not a definition, I think means that you'll struggle for the it's going to be the never the twain shall meet with regard to camera, because you've clearly named it. We have cask, you have craft, and I think that for me that's a bit, as a camera member and a real lover, and also a good beer lover and a craft beer lover, it's a bit of a problem sometimes. Is
it a problem that it's been labelled? Is that the problem? Because when, I'm sure sort of like 5 years ago when the Colonel started producing beers, they didn't intend to have their beers referred to as craft beers. They, Evan didn't set up a craft brewery. He just started brewing beers.
Yeah. I've got no doubt he, if you asked him, he, as far as he's concerned, he makes good beer. He makes good beer, but he wants to drink. That's it.
So when did it?
When did it become craft?
Well, yeah, when did it first get labelled?
I don't know. I did think about trying to find that out, but that I thought could take me a long time to find out what was the first beer to be called craft.
Who was the first person to refer to the term craft beer on Twitter?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, probably a good time to throw in some of the comments that we read. So, you can start if you want, Steve.
Yeah. So let's start on the side of the popular vote, which was no.
Okay.
So those a couple of comments from people who clearly voted outrightly no on this one. So Mark at Kel Fired. Mark's becoming a bit of a regular contributor. I seem to be reading his name out every week.
Yeah, he's had a few thrown in.
Absolutely not. It's just a throwaway term to use when talking about it with non-beer enthusiasts to get the point across. Now that comes back to the point that you were saying about your weekend in Dublin with your mates.
Yeah, I mean, I did, before this poll came out, and because I was in Dublin, I sort of put all of what we were doing tonight to one side, as catching up with friends. I did get asked to define craft more than once.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So as much as you were trying to say, no, I'm not having anything to do with it.
There's a couple of times when I pretended
just kept dragging you in.
to ignore it.
Yeah.
And then one of them would go, so craft then? And I was like, oh, shit.
Can I not just drink my beer?
Yeah, let me drink my beer. Let me drink my non-craft beer in peace. And they were generally interested. They were more generally interested when we went to like a couple of the Galway Bay bars, because then they started to get a nice feel for the bar we were in. A few of them branched out to try some of the paddles, so they were trying a few different beers, and then it sort of piqued their interest about craft. And again, I couldn't give an outright definition. I was using words like innovation. I was using words like I did use the phrase like small batch, brewers who care. But equally, I said some of my favourite beers, which would be classed as craft, at least by me, wouldn't be classed as small batch either.
Yeah.
The scale doesn't equal bad, and small doesn't equal good. So I spent the whole time skirting around it and trying to throw various words in there. But they were genuinely interested about how, if you're going to use a word, you can then give it a definition. Which I suppose is one thing about, going back to what I was saying about Canberra, they've got a very clear definition of what real ale is.
Yeah.
Real ale, cask, no, secondary fermentation, no interference, etc. Most people are aware of that one. I couldn't give a similar sort of thing for craft. So I could say what it wasn't.
That's interesting, because I mean that lends itself to another of the comments that we had. So Mark Bailey at Uproar 13, he was another one that was on the no side, and his response was simply, "No, I know it when I see it." Now, do you think that's right? Do you know craft beer when you see it?
I feel like I do. I feel like when I'm with other beer enthusiasts, we probably wouldn't need to say whether it's craft or not. We'd probably be quite comfortable acknowledging it and knowing it without implicitly saying it. But again, people outside of this immediate world, they don't know what it is. And I mean, that applies to other things. I mean, you've got whiskey distillers now saying they're craft. You've got gin distillers saying they're craft.
Oh, everybody's craft.
The term craft has started to get used. I mean, one of the places we were in Dublin had the word craft and artisan in almost one sentence. Unfortunately, the beers weren't brilliant.
Yeah.
So craft and artisan doesn't equal brilliant. Exactly the same as, big doesn't equal bad in the taste of the beers.
Well, that again lends itself to a discussion. This one came up on Facebook. So this was a unrelated discussion I was having with someone on Facebook. This was Philip Kelly said he saw an advert around the pitch during the England-Australia Rugby League game that said crafted since 1882. Can't remember whether the brewery was John Smith's or Tetley's, but crafted now means the same as brewed. It's essentially got to a point where it's become nothing more than a marketeer's term for how you produce and package beer.
I think for a lot of producers, it probably has been. It's been taken.
Yeah.
It's been used differently. And the word crafted bothers me more than the word craft, if I'm being honest.
I don't like crafted.
Crafted tells me nothing.
Crafted, handcrafted, it's just... They're just
big toenail crafted.
Yeah, they're cringe-worthy words that have no place on a bottle or a can of beer.
Yeah, I've got a feeling it might be Tetley's, because I think Tetley's do sponsor Rugby League, but I stand to be corrected because Rugby League I rarely watch.
Yeah.
But we all know Tetley's has been around for donkeys, whether it's 1882 or even longer, wasn't it? And in the blog I wrote recently, that was part of my beer journey to tie in with our show. Part of my beer journey was discovering Tetley's on cask over 20 years ago. That beer, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't exist anymore.
Well, no, because it's not even produced in Leeds anymore. It's produced in Wolverhampton now.
It's definitely not Yorkshire.
Yeah,
and it's definitely not the Tetley's that I remember having in the early to mid 90s when I was part of a pub quiz team. So yeah, you're saying it's crafted since, but it's not the same bloody beer.
No, it's changed. Yeah.
So you just throw in these terms in because, like you say, the marketeers, the advertisers, they've all said the word craft. That grabs people's attention.
That's the word that we need to use because everybody's using it.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because James at Gammon Baron, and this very much links into one of the earlier shows that we've done. If only to avoid crap beer being passed off as such. Wince when you look at some supermarket supposed craft sections.
Yeah, I mean that does tie into, especially to the supermarket one we did about your brewers either just relabeling some of their beers or coming out with their craft beer brand.
Yeah.
When essentially they're just producing more muck.
Yeah, absolutely.
And passing it off with more money. I mean, apparently, according to something I read recently, one of the studies, if you have craft beer being sold, it's more usually 90p to £1 a pint premium.
Yeah, so you can charge a bit more.
You can charge more by having it as craft.
Yeah. Let's tuck into this wonderfully handcrafted artisanal brew
from Nobby's. So this is the American Pale Ale, isn't it? Deliciously indulgent tropical fruit flavours, packed full of hops and tropical fruit flavour. It's a very English take on American Pale Ale. Yeah, so it's again avoiding a lot of the twigginess that you might expect sometimes with even an English Pale Ale, but 5%, it's quite drinkable.
Very drinkable for what it is. Maybe could do with, for my liking, around that, it could maybe do with a little bit more carbonation.
A little bit more carbonation, maybe a little bit of malt, perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very drinkable. I've been, like I said, this is my first experience of them. Bought them at the MK Beer Garden. Nice bottles. What are they, pint bottles?
500ml.
Okay,
so
but they're good looking.
They're that nice shape.
Yeah.
They're, long neck. Interesting that obviously we've just been discussing sort of marketing and labelling and the rest of it, and this is kind of the reason why we chose to have these beers as part of this week's show. Is that there's nothing about that you wouldn't look at that and think, oh, craft. Very almost traditional style labelling on it. But producing styles that, as you say, tonight we've featured the best bitter and the American Pale Ale, but we also did the Pilsner beforehand as well. So very sort of like standard traditional styles, but produced in a way that actually it's got there's tons of flavour in there.
Yeah, I would say fairly modern takes on all three styles actually, and above all very drinkable. Yeah,
absolutely. So in terms of the marketing, then we had a few people comment on marketing's use of craft beer and it therefore serving a definition. So Gregor at Gregor_J_ said no, another in the no camp. There's good beer and there's shit beer. Craft is a marketing term that's been adopted by macros. Seba even tried to monetize it. Thomas Marshall at TDTM82, people are confused enough as it is, it's just marketing. And then Cowboy Drinks Craft at CY. Cowboy Drinks Craft. Just look him up.
It's phonetically.
Yeah. He's taken out all of the vowels, and that really confuses me. Says he guess it depends on if it's being used as a selling point, which it is, and therefore so it should. What are your views about craft as a essentially a marketing tool?
But I mean, I guess if you're a small brewer and you are trying to make your way in the marketplace, and you do feel you are doing something different to the existing macros, the existing family brewers, the existing regional brewers, there's very few phrases you can use. And in a world where, you know, we have an attention span of about 6 to 10 seconds when people are trying to make an impact, I can see why the word craft is being used. Would we be having this discussion if we didn't feel over the last couple of years it started to be overused and macros had started to adopt it, regionals had started to use it, bleeding crafted was starting to be used all over the place? Perhaps we wouldn't have been having the chat because we'd feel that we knew roughly where the craft market sat. But the same even goes to, like, you know, you have craft beer places, and what sort of beers would you expect to see in there?
Well, you'd expect to see beers from known craft breweries, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but I mean, Craft Beer Co has a good range of cask.
It does.
And they still call themselves craft. No one says, oh, they shouldn't call themselves craft beer because they've got cask in there.
And also from breweries that sometimes could be considered as very traditional breweries. as well. So I think it's important to make that distinction. I mean, it's a great point you make there in terms of, is the term being overused? Absolutely yes.
Yeah, I think we probably get a good shout on that one for the yeses.
Yeah. Yes, in America there's a definition of craft beer. There is in Ireland as well. I was chatting to Wayne about this offline in the week. In Ireland have a definition which is purely based on tax purposes as well.
Okay.
I didn't manage to get the link from Wayne in time for the recording, but I'll try and include it in the show notes if I manage to get it. There's been talk of us having a definition over here. Obviously, the American one's an interesting one because part of the definition is on size and the percentage that it's owned by, and we covered off a lot of that in the Two Goose Island shows that we did as well, in terms of them still producing craft beer but nobody accepting it as such because of who they're owned by.
Yeah, I'm going to maintain that I don't think you can base it on scale necessarily, one way or the other.
Yeah.
It comes back to your handcrafted thing. I mean, there are some craft brewers who the version of handcrafting is they're pressing buttons. They've made their brewery as automatic as required, but might still make great beer.
Yeah.
Do I then say, well, it's not craft beer? I mean, for me, craft beer is modern, so why wouldn't you use modern techniques? It's, using innovation, and ultimately it's about what ends up in my glass and do I enjoy it as well.
And does it... So it doesn't need to come from a craft brewery for you to enjoy it? And is that what it boils down to? Is the beer in my glass a good beer that I want to drink again?
I think ultimately yes, but we will still... maybe it's a human thing, I don't know. We always try to put things in boxes. Maybe that's part of it. We can't help ourselves as well.
Yeah.
We have to define it. We feel like we should define it. I even had the conversation at the weekend about, well, what's the difference between beer and for me, beer is like that's your umbrella term. Then you have your styles.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, I stand to be corrected.
You can buy one of those massive pictures that's got all the little bubbles on it that shows you all the different styles.
But it says beer.
Yeah, if you want to understand
so
that.
Beer's your umbrella.
Yeah.
And then you've got all your styles underneath it. Or wheels on a spoke and the spoke is in the middle and it comes out. So, it's hard because we're always trying to define and redefine and things like that. For me, I don't feel like it needs to be done. I'm fairly certain that it would have helped my conversations at the weekend if I had a definition to start off with. Yeah.
Well, I think I suppose if people have got this far through this week's show, I'm not going to burst anybody's bubbles by saying this, but we're not going to be defining this right here and right now.
No, because I'm not prepared for the flack on Friday after release a show.
Yeah. The purpose of this was simply to ask whether or not there should be a definition, and just I suppose in summary of this week's discussion, both Mark Johnson and Pete McKerry, who are becoming serial mentions on this show, have recently written blogs about this, which they were both very quick to point out as well. Much to me, yet then using the phrase mention whore or hashtag mention whore to the pair of them. But those two blogs will be linked through in tonight's show notes.
And again, they both made good points.
They both make very good points. I mean, this isn't a new subject, is it? This is one that's been.
Well, no, I mean, I got around to watching like a 5-6 minute YouTube video that Sarah Finney had done.
Yeah.
Which was off the back of the I think the European Beer Bloggers Conference, where I think a similar sort of question was asked, but along the lines of do we need to define craft? And she made the point that generally no one came to any general consensus. Again, I think that's worth a little bit of a look. I agreed with most of the things she said, to be honest, and it felt very much like that conversation you used to have years ago about your favourite bands when they went from indie to being signed up.
Yeah, which we spoke about.
Yeah, and that's what it felt like to me. And again, I couldn't disagree with it. I was never one of those ones that said that as soon as they got signed up, they were shit.
But
it'd be what the music sounded like.
I will still maintain Adnams Ghost Ship is one of the best UK pale ales out there.
Wouldn't disagree. Yeah.
And I will quite happily order a pint of that every time I see it. Last week I had a pint of London Pride in the parcel yard, and it tasted absolutely stunning. You can't tell me that that's not crafted. It may not be handcrafted at Fuller's anymore, but it's still an incredibly good beer. So there isn't anything that should set aside good beer, regardless of the size of the brewery that's producing it.
Agreed with that. I said I've got no problem using the term craft. I'd rather didn't have to if there was some other way of describing it, but I would find it then hard. I'd end up spending a lot of time to write the word craft in a different way. So if I was writing a blog and I was trying to say about craft, I'd probably just say craft.
Yeah, because your readership's going to relate to that.
Yes.
But I've noticed in the last year that the phrase has started to be used in conversations with colleagues at work. And we'll have conversations about, I went to this place and they had craft beers. And it's now becoming almost part of the popular language.
It's fashionable to be seen to be having craft beer.
Yeah. So just in summary then, final summary, the final comment that I'm going to make that came from a listener was Miles Lambert. Always like to give Miles a mention because he does always take the effort to tweet at least 4 answers to every opinions poll. But this was the one that I wanted to pick out the most. So, what purpose does a definitive term serve? It should narrow down some uncertainty for buyers, but it's way too wide a term. And I think that probably sums up exactly where both you and I were coming from.
Yep.
On this one.
We should have said Miles' one at the start, and you lot would have had a lot shorter show to listen to.
From there, yeah. As always, though, make sure if you've still got a view on this particular subject, you can tweet us, use the hashtag Hopinions, and it'll be great to keep that conversation going on Twitter. Now, you've spent the weekend pissing it up in Dublin.
Yes.
Have you been able to find a suitable winner of this week's Big Box of Nothing?
I have still done that.
Okay.
And it's not the first win for this person. Okay. Sparkrite for the Lost Abbey picture. A very nice one with the cork, the beer in the glass, nice little background. Yep. I'll be tweeting that later, but that was definitely the best picture.
Okay.
I need some different pictures as well. Yeah. Glass and bottle and glass and can need something different.
Try something.
Yeah, and
different.
not the one in the air either. Please.
Yeah, what, the can on the side of the glass? Yeah. No, I particularly dislike that one. Cue a whole host of pictures on Instagram of cans on the side of glasses.
Yeah, probably.
No doubt. Well, that's almost it for this week. Make sure to hang around for the end and listen to the interview that I did with the guys from Hofmeister, because it is quite insightful. It's interesting to see where they come from and why they chose to re-release the brand.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't heard it myself, so yeah, that should be interesting.
Yeah, so it is a bit on the longer side of our interviews. It runs for about 20 minutes, but as I say, there's a lot of insight in there if you're into that sort of thing. And next week, Hopinions is taking a break. We're having a week off next week, but there will be a show in its place. We'll be bringing you the second Irish beer report, where we'll be featuring beers from Rascals. The week after, Hopinions will be back, and we will be featuring this year's Northern Monk trilogy series. So we'll be featuring Hops, which was brewed with Epic Brewing Co. We'll be featuring Malt, which was a collab with Demolan, and we'll be featuring Yeast, which was a collab with Scar City as well. And all 3 of those beers are available now, so you've got a couple of weeks to get your hands on them to drink along with us. So I think without further ado, that's about it for this week. Cheers.
Cheers, Steve.
We're here in the Piano Bar in High Street, Kensington. I'm with Spencer and Richard from Hofmeister. Guys, welcome to the show. Thanks for giving up a few minutes to chat with me about Hofmeister, which is being re-released to the UK market. Now, a few weeks ago on the show, our listeners will know that we did an episode that was around branding, and we essentially built the whole show around the re-release of this beer, without actually tasting the beer or talking to anybody from behind the beer, which we thought was probably a little bit unfair, and we thought it was a good opportunity to give you guys the airwaves to talk to our listeners about what you've done. So I'm going to start off with what's probably one of the most obvious questions that I want to get out on the promotional material that we got sent through. It states, a group of beer-loving British entrepreneurs that believe the time is right to bring back Bavarian Hells to the UK. Beer-loving entrepreneurs, so you're businessmen, basically.
We are. Our business that we've been involved with has always been around alcohol, and a lot of the stuff that we've done has actually been beer. So, to give you a little bit of our background, Richard and I are directors of another company now, and directors of a previous company. And one of the things that we did every year, as I'm sure you and your listeners would have seen in the places like Tesco's and Asda, Sainsbury's, Boots, Debenhams, was the round the world beer packs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think
we've all had one of those at Christmas at some point. Yeah.
Well, you could either thank us or hate us for receiving it, because that would have been.
There's been a few occasions where I've kind of wanted to give it back to the person that's given it to me.
I can imagine, and Richard and I would have been responsible for designing, developing, making, and ultimately, therefore, sourcing. The beers that went into those packs over the years. So, there's been a few interesting beers that we've gone and bought for that project. So,
one of the ones I remember distinctly was Zambezi.
Okay.
And this must be going back to, I would imagine, probably early 2000s, or even just before that.
Yeah.
And so we brought a 40-foot container of Zambezi into the UK, and when it turned up, nothing was palletised. It came out of the container, and it was literally in wooden boxes. And the packers who had to kind of unpack this were not particularly happy that there was all this firewood. But the beer was great, it was fantastic. Nobody else had it in the country at the time. Went into one of the packs that went into one of the retailers. And it's that interest and I think excitement about trying new, different beers from all over the place that there's been sort of like deep-seated within us for a long time.
And to be honest, we pretty much enjoy travelling around the world, sourcing new beers.
I bet it was a really tough job.
Tough job, exactly. So things like Quilmes as well, Argentina, Desperado, we were bringing in before anyone else had it here. Just interesting beers from around the world, which would go into those round the world beer packs that you see in all the big retailers at pretty much this time of year now. So, having done that for all these years, one thing that really struck us, and we'd continually gone to Germany, gone to Bavaria in particular, and I think Germany and Bavaria in particular probably had its craft beer revolution like 500 years ago. There's so many breweries over there that we visited, and yet even us, although not directly in the beer industry but attached to the beer industry, and certainly all of our friends and people we knew, if you asked them, name me a Bavarian beer brand.
Yeah, you can't, can you? Yeah.
A lot of people would struggle, but yet I think we all know Bavaria makes great lager, makes great beer. There's one of the statistics that we saw was when the Olympics were in London, it brought just under 700,000 tourists to the UK for the world's biggest sporting event that happens every 4 years. However, the Oktoberfest that happens every year in Bavaria, over 6 million people go every year to the Oktoberfest. So that's how much people love Bavarian lager. But yet,
to drink Helles lager.
To drink Helles lager, but yet, we couldn't, and not very many other people could name us the brand that represents great Bavarian beer. So that's actually where we started from, was we thought there is a gap, just no one is servicing this gap in the market. So we started there, so actually the brand came second. Okay. It was we think there's a gap in the market for what we believe is just fabulous beer. No one's doing it and doing it properly. And then we thought, do you know what? There's a really, really big famous brand which everyone knows of a certain age. It tends to be about 35, 36 and above. So everyone knows in the UK. And funnily enough, it's icon George from the very first advert. He comes out of a Bavarian forest.
Yes, yeah.
So the brand was we loved the brand. Of course, that's why we bought it. But we just thought that it suits the gap in the market. So it's something that people can recognise. We thought there's going to be some historical affection, a love and interest in that brand. But we can maybe now give people the beer that Hofmeister should have been the first time around.
It's interesting that you talk about statistics there, because when we did a poll with our listeners, 38% of our listeners had no idea about the Hofmeister brand. They didn't realise it was something before. They didn't understand the relevance of it coming back. So why the decision to go for essentially a defunct 80s really bad beer brand as your kind of flagship for this new beer?
Well, I think Hofmeister back in the day was standard. It was similar to every other lager at the time.
Yeah.
And obviously rocketed in popularity due to the adverts. And yeah, it went away, 13 years in hibernation. And I think that just the fact that whenever we spoke to anybody about the possibility of this, two things happened. One, there was a huge smile, so there was obviously affection. And then secondly, most people said follow the bear. And so looking at it, I suppose, from a almost a business perspective, if you've got that level of recognition and you can combine that with a really genuinely very, very well made, fantastic quality product, you've got a fighting chance of actually getting some airtime and actually being able to talk to people about the product. And when we decided to do this, the most important thing for us was to make sure that the product, the beer itself, was the best we could possibly get. So yes, completely different to the original iteration, but something which is much, much more relevant for today's drinkers. And with luck, people who are below 35, 36 will actually see it, like the look of it, taste it, and actually think, yeah, this is a great beer, and buy it for what it is now, as opposed to any hangover from what it was back in the day.
Because the beer itself is brewed by a traditional Bavarian brewery that brew the beer for you, and then it's packaged as Hofmeister. Why not just put it out under that brewery's name?
I think that the fact is that we love the brand.
Okay.
So the brand to us makes perfect sense, and the affection is wonderful. So when we went to Bavaria, we had a very, very difficult time zigzagging across the state, finding a brewery to brew the correct beer for us.
Again, another really tough job having to go to lots of breweries and try lots of different beers.
Absolutely horrendous. But when you look at their packaging, then it's very kind of Hansel and Gretel in terms of the way they're presented, and not really correct for what people are looking to buy into in the UK.
Yeah, I think there's a reason that no one can name a Bavarian beer brand, or very few people can, because they haven't appealed. That those brands haven't cut through in the UK market. So for us, it was important to firstly just find the best brewery that we could. And that was, first just from the quality of beer that they could make from its point of view. And with this, the guys there, their breweries just on the edge of the Ebersberger Forest. They've got their own water source, which is mineral water. So whatever they don't make into beer gets bottled and sold as mineral water right there. So the raw ingredients are just fabulous. It's locally sourced. They're barley. They're one of a handful of Bavarian breweries who've got their own malt house and do their own malting still. Local Hallertau hops, so they had everything there in terms of capability to work with us and make us a fantastic Helles lager for us to bring back as Hofmeister. But they also had, some capacity that we can tap straight into. So there was a number of things that went into that decision. And I think just to echo what Richard was saying, we've tried to approach Hofmeister as let's design this and make this as if we were making it from afresh. But the fact that there is residual affection, love, maybe interest from people probably 35 years and above, we believe definitely gives us an advantage. I think in your poll that you did, 20% or however many it was said they'd want to try it again.
Yeah.
Which for a new beer launching in the market, to have 20% of the beer drinking population saying we'll take that straight away. If 20% of the beer drinkers out there will try it, give us a try.
Yeah,
that's a fantastic result.
Is the beer, obviously beer's produced in Bavaria, packaged there and then brought to the UK, or transported to the UK and packaged here?
Transported to the UK in tankers and then packaged for us by Marston's up at Burton-upon-Trent.
If I can just say, I think one of our best moments of both of our lives has been our first tanker leaving Bavaria, and as they were filling it, them tapping off a pint of our own lager from that tanker and giving it to us before
at 10 o'clock in the morning.
10 o'clock, doesn't matter, the time doesn't matter.
So are you tapping into Marsden's distribution network then as well?
We're using them to obviously expertise at bottling and kegging when we come onto kegs, and they do it for an awful lot of small brewers, medium-sized brewers up and down the country, and also their storage facilities, and then their ability to do day 1 for day 3 deliveries to almost nationwide. So yes, in effect, we've kind of got a wonderful brewing partner, and we've got a fantastic facilitation partner. And so our job is to promote the beer and to generate sales. So I think working with guys like that makes our job, I think, much easier in terms of the fact we can rely on their expertise and knowledge to deliver a fantastic product to wholesale and then end retail outlets.
And having the ability to work with the brewery in Bavaria, does that give you the potential down the line to have a range of Hofmeister lagers?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
In fact, the brewery we work with are extremely good at producing wheat beer.
Okay.
And they've won some taste awards in Germany for their wheat beer, probably more than actually for their Helles. And we'd love to in the future be able to extend the family out to have other expressions, so that other people in the UK can express or can drink different styles of Hofmeister.
George's relatives.
Almost want to see George come back. Almost.
He's on the label.
I do actually own George.
Really?
So the original, we should have brought the jacket along.
Yeah. So who are you aiming the beer at in the UK? Is it just the casual drinker? Is it people that are really into their beer? Is it a bit of both? Where are you pitching it?
It's kind of a bit of both. We've sort of said this is like an everyman's beer. I mean, it's wonderful quality. So somebody who really appreciates and wants to, sniff out interesting, new, different beers which have got provenance and superb quality, will get something from drinking this. Other people who maybe remember the brand from back in the day, who want to drink something which is refreshing and it's not too gassy, it's not overly hopped, lovely drink. It fits them as well, and then people who want to explore something new. So we're not specifically saying we're going for this particular sector. I think where it's pitched and just the simple kind of economics of it will be that probably our main end consumer will be probably the kind of like 35 plus kind of type of person. But it's a beer for everybody to enjoy whenever.
And in the UK, we've not got that many Helles beers. There's probably one that everybody will instantly think of. So where do you see this sitting in the market? Do you think people are going to go for it because of the style? Are people going to go for it because of the that link to George? Are they going to go for the labelling? What is it that's going to attract people to your beer over what is now essentially a very crowded marketplace?
I think we are exactly that. We're another style of beer. We're Helles Lager. We're as good as Helles Lager as we've personally tasted, and the plaudits and that we've been given by the beerocracy, if you like, on the taste and the quality of our Helles Lager we've been blown away by what people have said about it. So we believe there is a place in the market for fabulous Helles Lager, just as there is for fabulous Pilsners, for fabulous IPAs, for all these other styles of beer. So we're just a different taste and a different option for people.
Okay. And it's at the moment it's still fairly new to the market. It's only recently just been released. In terms of availability moving forwards, obviously you've linked up with Marsden's to get the beer out there, but are we expecting supermarkets, chains? Where are we going to be seeing Hofmeister?
Our initial push is basically on trade through a network of regional wholesalers. That's the starting point. We're steering away from supermarkets for the foreseeable future. We've spent a lot of time dealing with the likes of Asda, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, and yet they drive huge volumes, but they also drive prices right down, and it's not right for the brand as far as we're concerned yet. That might come in 5 years' time, who knows? But to begin with, we want to be able to deliver the brand, the right quality of product into the right environments for people to be able to enjoy. As we grow, then more and more availability will come through. But I think that supermarket sector is not quite on on the horizon yet.
And and we're not making in industrial quantities, but we are.
What sort of quantities are being produced?
So first of all, we're a fourth generation privately owned Bavarian brewery. So it's not an industrial scale brewery by any manner of means. So for the right way for us to expand and grow is the on-trade, which we can support, and we can support those volumes. In terms of volumes, it's difficult to say. I mean, that will depend on how quickly distribution grows out there. But the brewery partner we've got will support and can manage a reasonable nationwide launch. Should it go that far that quickly? But our expectations and the way we're building it is slowly. It's a huge big brand, but we are launching this as a soft launch effectively and a start-up into the market.
Yeah, we've seen people make comments on Twitter and various things saying jump on the bandwagon, there's a load of pot of cash we made from craft, and that's not what we're doing this for. This is something that we passionately believe in, because number one, it is fun. It really is fun. And
if you can't have some fun with Hofmeister, what can you have fun with?
I must admit, when I first saw the story, my eyes rolled. I've got to admit that. I was like, really? Why would you do that? But then actually chatting to you guys this evening, reading up on what you've done, tasting the beer as well, it begins to shift that perception a little bit, because actually what's come across is you guys are incredibly passionate about this. You've had a real tough time going around and having to try loads of beers to find the right one, and what you've come out with is a product that looks good. It tastes pretty good as well, and that actually you guys are genuinely excited to get out there to the drinking public.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll make people smile. It makes us smile. That's not.
It can't not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you can give someone a good beer and make them smile, you're not doing a bad thing in life.
So what's next for you guys? You're going to start rolling the beer out nationwide?
Yeah, we've got so our kind of patchwork quilt of regional wholesalers covers from kind of John O'Groats up to Scottish borders without any problem at all. And then it's literally we need adoption of the product by pubs and bars and on-trade retail outlets nationwide. So that's what we're focusing on the next few months, growing the distribution and being. I mean, it's a tough life for us, but we have to be the ambassadors for this product, and we have to talk at length to people about how wonderful it is.
And be out there selling. We'll be knocking on. We will have feet on the ground from a couple of weeks' time, going around knocking on doors, and we'll be part of those feet on the ground. We love it. We're involved in it. We're passionate to get it out there. Where we are sitting now happens to be one of my local watering holes, and I have to say, I'm very proud to be able to come into my local place and order a bottle of my own drink. It's a lovely thing, and we want to see other people enjoying it up and down the country.
And so we might see a range of other Hofmeister beers as well. Any other cheeky little 80s brands that you guys are going to buy and re-release to the masses as well?
Well, we've got our thinking caps.
Oh, there's some wry smiles there. Okay, just to finish then, if people want to know more about it, where can they find out more about Hofmeister right now?
Email us, george@hofmeister.co.uk.
Okay.
Visit the website, www.hofmeister.co.uk. And
you're on Twitter and Facebook as well, and
on Twitter.
Social platforms, I imagine.
Yeah, not Facebook as yet, but we're on Twitter. Watch this space for Facebook be a little bit. Yeah. Email george@hofmeister.co.uk or www.hofmeister.co.uk. We look forward to hearing from everyone.
Okay, brilliant. Well, listen, guys, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it, and cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Life in the Bavarian forest was boring. The big event was me and Ronnie Rabbit watching a leaf fall down.
A leaf! I saw a leaf!
Hey. Then one day I discovered Hofmeister lager with a picture of my grandpa on it.